All right. Well, good morning. I'm Hans Rasmussen, one of the ministers here, evangelists in the Denver Church of Christ, and it is great to be able to worship together. So last week, we talked a little bit about fear and anxiety, and really want to thank everybody for being super gracious and very kind. I want to encourage you, don't miss next week, because I won't be up here. It'll be a good time to come if you don't like me. So we got a great somebody from Dallas, Texas. Mark Mancini is coming out. So I know some of you guys know Mark, and it's encouraging. So he and some of the Dallas leadership team are coming out to do some training and discipling with the Denver staff and eldership. We're trying to learn all that we can from a church that's really doing well and has just some great collaborative leadership. So we're excited that they're coming here, and so he's going to stay through Sunday and preach. It'll be exciting. You know, so last week we talked about fear, how common it is, that it's universal, but the reality is that, hey, there's things going on in our lives that we are weaker than, that there are forces that we are vulnerable to. And, you know, I've been learning a ton about myself and how I deal or don't deal with these things. And, you know, it's been encouraging. But so we just started a master's program, Ann and I, with the Rocky Mountain School of Ministry. And we're getting our master's in pastoral counseling. And so, you know, took a class, and a lot of the resources are from this Christian Counseling and Education Foundation. Say that 10 times fast. But so some of these things that I'm going to share today, I've been learning from that, and it's really helped me a ton. David Powelson is one of the authors there that kind of pulls this stuff together. So it's been really good. And so the plan today is to cry less, talk more about some of these practicals. Because, you know, if you weren't here last week, I kind of went through the fact that I had a heart attack in 2015 and just the ups and downs, and mostly a lot of the downs that have been through that, and just the difficulty that I've had. And I really am very grateful that it helped you, and I'm very grateful for just the grace and mercy that you guys showed me. I really appreciate it. But I explained last week that there's two facts of why we feel fear and anxiety in our lives, right? And in one, it's a reality. We live in a world that we can't control. Right? There's about nothing that I can control outside of like me, and even then sometimes I have a hard time. And so it's a fact, it's true. There's things going on that I can't stop, I can't control, and I can't make the world do what I want it to do. I'm absolutely powerless to it. And that's a reality, and that's okay. But that reality intersects with a lie. And the lie is that things are out of control, and I'm all alone to deal with this by myself. And so our hearts and our minds look at this vulnerability, we look at this weakness, and then Satan gets in there and says, yep, and you are all by yourself. And I loved looking at it last week, that we're not alone, that God is with us, that God wants to help us, so that we're not alone. That really is a lie. And that we have good reasons to feel fear, but we have better reasons to not be afraid. But sometimes it just takes some wrestling to get there. And as you could tell last week, I'm still wrestling. And so sometimes people have that classic anxiety where they get the butterflies and the sweaty hands and racing thoughts or nausea, sleep problems, shortness of breath, heart palpitations, dry mouth, whatever. But oftentimes anxiety is hiding behind something else. It could be hiding behind anger. It can be hiding behind this just intense desire to control people. For some people, it hides behind depression. And it's the same lie of Satan that comes into play, that when you're feeling anxiety, feeling fear, feeling depression, that you have to deal with it all by yourself, that you have to deal with it alone. You know, look at the news over the last couple of weeks, and, you know, 2 celebrities that took their own lives. And you look at this and go, well, we can't know all the reasons, we can't know all that was going on. And I think often when people take their own lives, they look at the pain that they're feeling currently, and they can't imagine going on anymore. And this seems like less pain than dealing with what's going on. And, you know, oftentimes as they interview people who've tried to commit suicide and fail, that they go, man, the moment that I did it, I regretted it. They've interviewed people who've jumped off bridges. And to a person, every one of them said, man, halfway down, I thought, what did I just do? And you know, I think there's those times where there's a momentary, that doesn't feel so momentary, but a momentary pain that seems so overwhelming that we make a permanent decision to deal with it in a way that we just go, I feel alone, I feel like this is my only option. And so if you're feeling depressed, or you're feeling that. I want you to know you're not alone. Because you could be surrounded by people and still feel alone, but God is with you. And we talked a lot more about that last week. I'd encourage you to go back and listen. It's on the website, and you can hear that. But you also have friends here. You have people that care about you, that love you. And I think oftentimes when we're in that situation, when we're stuck and we're feeling depressed or we're feeling overwhelmed, it's really hard to reach out. That's like the last thing you want to do. And so if you have a friend that you go, man, I'm kind of concerned about them, I'd encourage you, reach out to them. Let them know they're not alone. Love them enough to just give them a phone call or send them a text or give them a hug and just, hey, how are you really doing? And I think there's times where we fear, like, I'm worried they're going to hurt themselves, but we don't want to talk about it because we think we're going to put an idea in their head. And research has shown that that's not the case. And most of the time, if you ask somebody who you fear is going to hurt themselves, if you ask them, they'll tell you. And so have the courage to just ask, hey, are you safe? Or you thinking about you hurting yourself? And then do something with that answer. And if you don't know what to do, man, call one of the staff here in the church, call one of the elders. We want to help. We don't want anybody to feel like, hey, I'm all alone. I don't know what to do. Because there are things going on in the world that we can't control, and we can feel overwhelmed. And that fear and that anxiety and that depression can just seem overwhelming. And it seems like sometimes they can come out of nowhere. We go, things were going great, and this popped up. And I want to look at a scripture that really illustrates that. Go in your Bibles over to 1 Kings chapter 19. And if you don't have a Bible, the scriptures are going to be up there. But if you're taking notes, we're going to be in 1 Kings chapter 19. And I want to look at this amazing story because this is the end of a 3-year drought. It's been really rough. They're trying to find grass to just feed the animals. And the king at the time was named Ahab. And he was a horrible guy. And there's a time during this, at the same time, there's a prophet named Elijah. And Elijah is talking to one of Ahab's servants. The guy's name is Obadiah. There's not a test later, so don't worry about it. But Obadiah was a servant of God, and he was protecting these 100 other prophets, saying that he was hiding them from Ahab's wife, named Jezebel, because Jezebel was worse than Ahab, and she was trying to wipe out all the prophets of God, because she wanted everybody to worship Baal, a false god. And so Elijah talks to Obadiah and says, hey, I need to talk to Ahab. And Obadiah's like, that's a bad idea, because not only is he going to kill you, he's going to kill me. And but he sets up the meeting because Elijah promises, I'll show up, I'll be there. He's like, okay. So Elijah gets with Ahab and 850 pagan prophets, and he says, hey, why don't you meet me on Mount Carmel? And we're going to have it out. We're going to have a little confrontation. So when they get to the mountain, Elijah challenges them. And he says, hey, the people, they're wavering between two gods. And we need to stop it. We need to decide what we're going to do. We need to go in the right direction and quit wavering. We're not going to follow this false god Baal any longer. And so Elijah proposes a contest. And he says, hey, let's do this contest between my God and your fake god Baal. And so each side is to prepare a bull for sacrifice and put up an altar and do it. And so then he challenged them and said, here's what we're going to do. You guys go first, and you call on Baal. And if Baal is a real god, he's going to bring fire down and light this thing on fire, and it'll be awesome, and Baal will win. And so they do it. So all morning, from like 9 a.m. to noon, they're screaming, they're yelling, they're going, hey, come down, help us. And they're trying to do this, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't happen. All morning, they're going for it. So at noon, Elijah's feeling a little feisty, and he comes and starts taunting him and says, hey, what's wrong? Maybe you're not loud enough. Maybe he's like sleeping. And then it literally says, like some translations, but in the original language, it says, maybe he's pooping. Because sometimes it's hard to hear when you're doing that, or whatever. I don't know. You're preoccupied, and, sometimes it takes a really long time, And so he's just taunting him. And so what they do then for a little while is they start cutting themselves, and they're screaming and louder and louder, and it just doesn't work. And so then Elijah goes, okay, my turn. He goes, grab these 4 great big cisterns, these jars. Go fill them with water and dump it on everything. And then he made a trough around it, like a little ditch that they filled with water. And he had them do that 3 times. 4 jars, 3 times. Fills this with water, covers everything, covers the bull, covers the rocks, covers the little ditch that they make. And then he just prays. And following Elijah's prayer, it says fire falls from heaven. It consumes the sacrifice. It consumes the water, and it like licks up the rocks, and it licks up all the water. And he goes, well, that's pretty amazing. And all the people just shout out, the Lord is God. They go, okay, you win. And then he prays for rain to come, and rain comes. And it's a really cool story if you've never read that story. And for time's sake, we're going to skip it. But I would think Elijah's probably on cloud 9 going, this is pretty cool. I just fought 850 prophets of Baal. They do that. Then all the people go, they're false prophets. Let's kill them. So they kill them all. So he's like, okay, wipe those people out. We're doing good here. I don't have to worry about them anymore. I'm going in the right direction. And then it happens. He gets the text message. He gets the phone call, the email, the post on Facebook, right? And it says Jezebel, Ahab's wife, is not happy. And she makes this vow, I'm going to kill this guy because he just done ticked me off. And so Ahab, who has just been so spiritual, fought against 850, saw the fire of God come down, consume the bull, consume the rocks, lick up all the water, runs away in fear. And just goes, I'm out. And he goes to the desert, has this huge victory, but he goes, I'm afraid. And it says he was afraid, so he ran for his life. And I think I got this here. He says, Elijah was afraid, and he ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush, sat under it, and prayed that he might die. I've had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors. Then he laid down under the bush and fell asleep. Dude's depressed. He is discouraged. Huge victory. Very real threat comes in, and he gives in to fear. And he runs away. I've had enough. Can you relate to that one? Think about the time you're just going, I'm over it. I've had enough. I just want to die. And so, man, if you felt that ever, you're in good company with heroes of the Bible who just have been overwhelmed and discouraged, even in the face of really good things happening. They've gotten to the point where I'm over it. I love that scripture in Corinthians that says, no temptation has seized you except what is common to man. But see, God is faithful, that he will provide a way out for you. But we have to know how to deal with that stress, that anxiety, that depression. And so what I want to do today, in the rest of the time that we have left here, about 15 minutes, I want to share about 8 ways that we can deal with fear and anxiety. Now, this isn't a formula that's going to work every time, right? Because we like to go 1 + 1 is 2, and that doesn't work on stuff like this. It just isn't. But when you're a professional football coach, you go into a football game, you don't know every single thing that's going to happen, right? You don't even know who's going to kick off the ball to start the game until the coin toss, right? Unless you're like the Patriots, right? Because I heard they do stuff to make sure. It must be true. He said it at church, right? No. But you don't even know what's going to happen. That was not in my notes, okay? I'm sorry. But he's not unprepared as the coach, right? He goes with a game plan, a basic orientation of here's what's going to happen, here's what I want to do. And so what I want to do for us is give us 8 things as a game plan so that when you start feeling stress, anxiety, fear, depression, that you can go, here's things that I can do. So first thing is this. Number 1, name it. Name it. First, you got to name the things that are stressing you out in your life. We always have something to worry about. But what things tend to hook you? What do you tend to worry about? What good reasons, very valid reasons? Jezebel trying to kill you is a very valid reason, right? But I think sometimes just the act of naming it is really helpful because oftentimes the anxiety shows that things are the things in our life that are slipping away. Have you ever made a bucket list? The older I get, so a bucket list, everybody understand the concept? A bucket list is things you go, before I die, I want to do this. But oftentimes things that stress us out show holes in our bucket. You know, right? The bucket list I made when I was 16, I go, it's changed a lot. Some because I've decided, some because I just go, gosh, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. And those things can stress me out because they're slipping away. And I go, I'm missing out on these different things. And I think anxiety can show the things that are leaking out of our bucket. And as time goes on, the things that you thought you would accomplish, you go, that's not going to happen. And it can stress us out or feel like, hey, these things that are slipping away, and it's discouraging. And in the face of anxiety, it seems like there's a million things that we're juggling. And in reality, it's not. Because if you name it, you typically go, okay, here's maybe 10 things, maybe a dozen things that are causing stress in my life. But as you look at that list, as you're really doing it, you go, okay, there's only a few that I have any control over, right? Like, may the world end? It might. Do you have any control over that? Nope. And so you can let that one go a little bit to say, but what are the one or two things that I do have control over? What are the things that help me to go, okay, I can deal with this, and I can put this on my to-do list and figure it out, because oftentimes anxiety feels endless and infinite, where you go, it just never ends. But the reality is go, no, there's really only a couple of things. And if I can name it, say, this thing is stressing me out. Can I do anything about it? No? Okay, so what else is there? Are there things that are messing with my head that I know that I need to deal with? Because they're not endless. They really are finite. They really are specific. So name it. Call it out by name. The second thing we're going to do is this. We're going to know that God is with us. You got to know that God is with you. In Psalm 49 or 94, it says, when my anxious thoughts multiply within me, your consolations delight my soul. See, God's here, and he wants to console you. He wants to be with you. He says that his word will never leave you, that he won't forsake you, that we don't have to fear because he is with us, that know that he is here, and we just have to remind ourselves. I think even in the midst of anxiety and fear and depression, you got to go, okay, I know that God is here. Maybe I don't feel it right this moment, but just remind yourself, and sometimes just reminding yourself that, okay, I know that you're with me. I can remember times just feeling very much like, God's not in this, and I don't know if he's good. Just praying over and over again, going, okay, God, I know that you're good. I know that you're here. I know that you're involved, and just praying it till I believed it. Some people go, wow, I don't want to do this action because my heart isn't in it. And I go, well, sometimes I got to do the action to get my heart in it, right? Because if I just listen to my heart, bad things will happen, right? I mean, I'm not a good person. And so there's times where I just go, I've got to remind myself that God is with me, and just say it. So the third thing, again, not a formula, a game plan. Third, you got to describe how you express your anxiety. You have to spot the signs. How does anxiety, fear show up in your life? For some, it's these feelings of panic, right? Where you just feel like, man, it's like clutching my throat. Or sometimes for some, it's just like this vague uneasiness. They don't know what's going on. And it's a huge step forward when you just can stand back and say, red light on the dashboard, right? So maybe you don't know this. If you have a car, there's these like warning lights. I'm always amazed. Having done campus ministry, sometimes we're like, man, my car, the engine stopped. It's like, have you put oil in it? What's oil, right? And so there's on our cars, like sometimes a red light or a yellow light pops up and it starts flashing. And if you ignore that, the engine typically does bad things, right? Like it'll seize, it needs a little bit of oil, and you can put the oil in at the beginning. And so I think God gives us some of these things to say, hey, red light on the dash. And the sooner that we can recognize the red lights on the dash, the easier it is not to have the seized engine. And so for me, I go, I got to see those red lights and not indulge in the worry or help get down that rabbit hole. Because if I go, oh, no, I'm feeling this, a red light's going off, what is it? How do I describe it? How do I name it? How do I remember that God is with me? And so if you can do that, if you can name it early, it's that early warning sign. And so maybe it's a repetitive thought where you go, okay, that's the fourth time that's happened. I've thought about that. I need to take a minute. I need to think through this. I need to really pray about it and not just continue to get stuck because it's a red light. And for some people, it's anger. Like oftentimes my anxiety will come out in anger. Well, I'm just like, I don't know why I'm bugged, but I'm bugged. And it's typically like, the people I don't like most that I get angry with. No, it's not. It's my wife. It's my kids. Because, well, you're here and you're bugging me. I don't know why you're bugging me. But it's a red light for me. And it's a major red light where I just go, okay. And Anna will often go, why are you bugged? I'm like, I don't know. Do I need a reason? She's like, no, but you can't be bugged at me. I'm like, okay, that's fair. And so I got to recognize it's a red light and deal with it. And so, oftentimes we can get irritated and we can go, oh, what was it? But oftentimes look back and go, maybe it was fear, maybe it was anxiety. It's a red light. For other people, worry shows up in their body, right? You get a tension headache. You get a sore back or whatever. You get upset stomach. And so it's interesting there because there's so many things that we can try and fix it with. Or sometimes what happens is we get this idea for an imitation remedy. What I mean by that is like, ooh, if I had a big old beer, I'd feel better. If I just look at a little pornography, I'd feel happier. If I just get away from all you people who are driving me crazy. When I go, no, the reality is there's a red light going on that I'm feeling those things, and I got to look at the source. I got to name it. I got to describe it. I got to look at these early warning signs. And so spot the signs. How can these things become clues for you? And just be honest with yourself. Hey, I'm starting to lose this. I'm not feeling the control, and that's okay because there's things out of our control. But we have to remember, hey, am I forgetting God? What's this early warning light on my dash? And I need to remember I'm not alone. I need to describe it, and it'll make it easier the next time it comes up so I can deal with it sooner. The fourth thing, after we describe it, then just ask yourself. Ask yourself, say, why am I anxious? What's hijacked my heart in this? Is it that I've forgotten God? And then say, well, like, who is it or what is it that's edging out God in my life right now? What's starting to rule in my heart in place of God? What do I want? What do I need? What do I crave? What am I expecting? What am I lusting after? What am I demanding? And since we often we fear losing things we crave, what do? We either fear losing it or we fear never getting it. But sometimes I just simply forget, like, hey, God is with me, and I got to remember it. The Israelites forgot, right? Time and time again, you go, how are they so stupid? Have you ever thought that as you're reading the Bible? Like, what is wrong with these guys? And then I go, okay, humble attitude, Hans, like, what is wrong with this guy, right? Because I forget. We all forget. And so I need to ask myself, like, what's going on? Maybe it's a basic thing that all humanity needs, right? We have basic needs. There's like this fear of being excluded, the fear of other human beings, the fear of being taken advantage of, the fear of death, the fear of loss of control, a fear of pain, a fear of poverty. But just ask yourself, hey, what are those fears? What's going on? And what is the thing that's substituting God in my heart right now? Because he's near. And so I have to ask myself, why am I anxious if God is with me, if God is here in this? And so, fourth thing we're going to do is we're going to ask. The fifth thing we're going to do is, then you got to listen for his voice. I'm going to listen to what Jesus has to say. What better reasons does Jesus give me to not worry? What does God promise? What does God tell me to focus on rather than my worry, my anxiety, my fear? Right? Because right after Paul tells us not to be anxious because God is near, right? He says this in Philippians 4, verse 8. He says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's right, whatever's pure, whatever's lovely, whatever's admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Like, I have to listen to that sometimes because I can go down that rabbit hole of negativity like nobody's business. And I just have to remember and ask myself and go, hey, I got to listen to his voice. What is God trying to do? Because when we get spun up, we start thinking and focusing on one something that's making us anxious rather than focusing on what's going to help us, that's true and pure and noble and lovely and praiseworthy. I got to think about those things. So we're going to listen to his voice. Number 6, just talk to your dad. Like, go to the Father. Talk to him. And it's not as though God the Father doesn't know about it, but it helps us to talk about it. And he cares about the things that you worry about. He cares about your friends. He cares about your health. He cares about your kids. He cares about money. And just whatever it is on your list, he cares about it. And your Father knows what you need. And you can go to him with the things that concern you. And you can cast your cares upon him. Why? Because it says he cares for you. And you can leave your worries with him. Because they're always outside of our control anyways, right? Because I can think about, well, how is the kids going to turn out? Well, what's going to happen right there? Or think, am I going to get Alzheimer's? Or, what's going to happen to the economy? Am I ever going to get married? What if there's an anthrax attack? Is my dad going to become a disciple? When am I going to have money for the next set of bills that come up? And we have really good reasons to fear, to be concerned about these things, but we have better reasons to take them to someone who loves us, who cares about us. And so I need to bring the things that are stressing me out to God who can help and just talk to him about it. It's conversational, it's relational, because it's this relational solution to a very psychological problem. But us connecting with other people, speaking openly with God, man, it helps in those times. And you got to remember Philippians chapter 4, verse 6, where he says, hey, don't be anxious about anything. But in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And so what does it mean to pray? Well, it's like, hey, it says ask. Petition, what's that? It's like really ask. So it's okay to go, no, I don't get it. Or, no, I really want you to know this, God. That's okay to be like that. I mean, think about the book of Psalms and some of the requests in there, because it's not just like, hey, by the way, if you have time, oh omnipotent God. It is like, God, I need you right now. There is crying out. There is frustration. There's pleading. And so you ask, but then there's times where you go, no, I'm really going to ask. And talk about your fears, your anxieties, your struggles, the real stuff of life with genuine vulnerability. You need him. And the good news is that he's near. He's not far from each one of us. And so you go, what's the difference between worry and prayer? Well, worry just spirals downward. And prayer, it's going somewhere. You go, what good does it do? It really helps because it's going somewhere. It's going to the person who can fix it, God. And it's going to God who can actually help. I mean, the Bible talks about seek, knock, ask. And it doesn't make the struggle go away. But it just helps me to go, okay, I'm not alone. I'm talking to somebody who's in there. Because there's times where you go, I prayed and God didn't fix it. It was cancer. Maybe your spouse leaves you. Maybe you never get married. Perhaps your child goes off the deep end. We got to talk to our Father about those kinds of things. And he doesn't promise to make the bad, hard things go away. But what he does promise is that he's going to meet you and that he's going to help you and he's going to be there with you. And he willingly opens the door to himself. So you got to ask the loving Father who's near and just talk to your dad. And then the seventh thing here is you got to focus on today. Do today what needs to be done today. Okay? There's something good about marking something off your to-do list. It takes the stress away in a lot of ways. It says, therefore, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So focus on today. You can't change yesterday, and tomorrow is not guaranteed. Earlier in Matthew chapter 6, Jesus had said, hey, God knows what you need, so don't be like the Gentiles who worry and chase after these things. Just go after today. Live in today. And it's freeing to focus on today because all those things swirling around, you go, I can't deal with 15 of them, but I can work on 2. And so I'm going to work on those 2 that are in my control. Everything else is in God's hands, but I can impact those few things and I can make a change because there's like 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe. But there's really one that you can impact today. Man, do that. Work on those things when you're feeling that stress, when you're feeling that anxiety. Focus on today. And just go, I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to get that done. And I'm going to let God deal with the big things because he's way better at it than I am anyways. Right? He's kept the universe spinning this whole time without my help at all. He's probably got this. And so we're simply going to focus on today, the simple, small obediences, to take that small step in trusting God. And the 8th final thing here, in our game plan, not the formula, but just give back. Just give. Do something. Say something constructive. care for somebody else. It helps relationally. Give to meet somebody else's needs. Because in the darkest hole, when the world is the most confused and when there's barbarians on the street of your heart and it's just tough, there's always a right thing to do. There's always something that you go, I can give, I can help, and it will change your heart. And so the problem seems overwhelming, and we can just go, I'm going to worry, 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 and that's going to help me. It won't. But what we're called to do oftentimes is a small, itty-bitty, very doable thing. And so there's always something that I can do. You know, Paul wrote to the church in Corinth about giving back and helping there, and he says, praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion, the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles so that we can just feel better and not have to worry about anybody else. No. It says so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves have received. There are times that God will use the rough, hard thing in your life to help somebody else, to bless somebody else, because God can comfort and God will console us. And then we can give help and be there for other people. Just as Jesus, gave to you, and encourages us to give to others. We can help others with that comfort that we ourselves have received. But you can't give what you don't have. If you don't have peace, man, you got to get that peace from God. You got to feel okay with going, okay, I know that God is in control, but man, you got to learn how to give up that control and let God control your life. Because if you don't know the God who cares and the God who saves, man, you're not going to have anything in the tank to give. And so I'd encourage you, talk to the person that brought you. Come, talk to me or somebody else here that smiling face is always a good one to go to. So be a smiling face. But I go, get some help. Talk to somebody about it. Don't give up and walk away because God cares. He wants to comfort you. He wants to be close to you. And we've got some great kind of outlines in Scripture that you can just sit down with one of the members here and go through and say, I want to know God better. And not like we have all the answers, but we can help you kind of walk along in that path together and talk to the person that brought you or whatever, because I just encourage you to get that figured out. Or if you're not in a small group, get in a small group, because that's where great relationships happen. You had a great discussion in the group that we're members of this last week, and people were sharing, I didn't want to come. Like a bunch of us were like, I just want to stay home, I'm bugged. And all of us do a person like, but every time I come, I'm so glad that I did because it helps me. Helps me to get connected, and it helps me to be there. So I want to end with this. You know that story in Elijah where he runs away and says, I just wish I was dead, and why are you doing this to me, God? So he runs away, and God talks to him, and God sends an angel and says, hey, I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna be there for you, and gives him some food and strengthens him. And then God says, hey, let's talk. And Elijah says to him, hey, I've been super zealous, man. I nuked 850 guys. And I'm the only one. And they're trying to kill me. But it's cool because God doesn't condemn him or correct him. He doesn't like, you're so wrong. Because he's like, I'm all alone. Now there's 100 other people that Obadiah was protecting. But he just felt all alone because it is a universal lie told by Satan. That we're going to feel alone. And so God tells him, he says, go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord's about to pass by. And then we read this incredible story. It says there's this great wind that blows through, but it says that God was not in the wind. And then it says there was this earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And then it says there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And then it says this, and maybe it does. There it goes. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. I think sometimes we think that God's going to nuke us. He's going to burn us with fire. He's going to, just something earth-shattering needs to happen here for me to know that God is on my side. And God goes, no, I'm in the quiet. I'm in the gentle whisper. And so I want to encourage us this week, listen to God. Meet him in that quiet place. And if you don't have a relationship with God where you can be quiet before him because of the stress, the anxiety, the fear, man, get with somebody this week to help you get through that and overcome and deal with the fears that are in your life, because God doesn't want you to deal with it alone. He wants to be there with you.